if there's one thing, if people want to take away just one thing that could impact them the most from your story, what is the thing that you would say, here's the main point that you want to get across to the community?
Well, it's hard to put it into one point. I would say,
Welcome everybody to this week's episode of Patient Connect podcast, where we are going to talk to patients about their stories and hopefully help other multiple myeloma patients and what they're going through. So we are Patient Connect by Polygon Health, where we're connecting patients with resources. We have our platform called Patient Connect, where it's an all-in-one place where you can discover other patients like you, specialists, and connect to resources to better educate and inform you. Today, we have a great treat, Byron from Texas. And Byron, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate it. It's definitely an honor on my part. My name is Byron. I was originally born in Florida and have spent the majority of my life in Texas. My dad was military, so a little bit in California, and grew up in my younger years there. But I live just south of Fort Worth, kind of in the central Texas area. That's where I'm located and where I'm with my family and raising my family and living our life. So.
Awesome. Maybe tell us a little bit, about life before multiple myeloma, and then we can talk about your diagnosis. So sort of kind of how life looks like over there and how things were going, and then lead into the date of diagnosis.
Sure. So really for the majority of my life, I've spent pretty much ranching on the back of a horse. And then I was also worked as a paramedic for 7 years. Got out of that and got into got into being a diesel and RV technician. Not sure how that happened, but that's what I did. Sort of took my mechanical talents and tried to make them work. And that segued into becoming a service writer. So now I'm a little bit more of an office job. And that is my full-time job, certainly not my only one. I also have spent the last 5 years building up my skills as a competitive shooter with pistol and tactical carbine. So I do some instruction on the side part-time with firearm stuff. It's just something I'm passionate about and enjoy. And other than that, man, just, raising my family and working hard, like we do here, and then just playing hard on the weekends with my wife and kids and, just living our life. So
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So that's a great backdrop. And now take us to, your story is very interesting. As we talked earlier, it's kind of a short story in terms of like when you got diagnosed to where you are now, but talk us to the lead in like what led you to that diagnosis and just that you were diagnosed earlier this year.
Sure. Yeah, kind of a funny story. Not funny. That's kind of not the best word to choose it, but leading up to it. So I didn't have any symptoms before. And and I say that because I read about a lot of other patients who had varying bone issues, some as bad as fractures, that sort of thing. That wasn't really my story. I didn't have any bone pain. I had no symptoms other than looking back. I had some fatigue. I'm heavy into fitness, and I was attributing a lot of that fatigue to wintertime and allergies. Well, at the end of March, for about a 4-day stint on a weekend, I had double vision in my right eye. And I had just gotten glasses from my eye doctor, so I thought I had an eye issue. Monday came to work, and thankfully I have a coworker who just was really smart. I was kind of laughing it off. He said, "Man, you need to go get checked out like today." I said,
Mm-hmm.
"Okay." So I went to my eye doctor. And long story short, she found out that there was nothing wrong with my eyes. She sent me to the ER. She said, "I think you have something else going on. I
Gotcha.
really need you to get that looked at." So I went to the ER at Hughley here in Burleson, Texas, and they immediately sent me to CT because they thought I was having a stroke, even though I had no other symptoms presenting, just simple double vision out of one eye. From that, they did a CT scan, discovered a bone-involved tumor in my brain that was pressing on that optic nerve and causing that double vision. So from there, it went from, sort of a no big deal to managed chaos, where they were going to try to life flight me to UTSW. They thought I had to have emergency operative surgery to remove the tumor. They couldn't get care flight because there weren't any available, so they put me on an ambulance, got me to UTSW in Dallas, and they found out that it was inoperable as far as the tumor was concerned. They put me in ICU and, of course, started running a series of tests, and I was there for 7 days. They were testing for all kinds of different cancers, from what I understand. At the time I was there, I didn't know what they were doing. They were just testing.
Right.
They started me on dexamethasone right away to start to shrink that tumor to relieve the pressure on the optic nerve. So the good news is I had my vision back in about 3 days after that treatment started, but it took them about 8 days to figure out what I had, which is myeloma. And that was just, blood work after blood work, and that's what they narrowed it down to. So that's how that happened. And I kind of had three things going on. I had the tumor they had to deal with. I had the pressure on the pituitary gland it was pressing on, and then they discovered the myeloma. So I kind of had a heavy road ahead of me at the beginning.
Got it. And what was your sort of thinking and emotional state when you first heard the words tumor, multiple myeloma? Take us through sort of like how you processed all that.
Sure. It's I'll start by saying this. My wife and I both. With myself, I'm pretty matter of fact. I don't spend a lot of time lamenting over things. I mean, I've had other things in my life. We've all had stuff happen.
Yeah, yeah.
I think we were sort of in disbelief about the tumor, but I do remember I turned and looked at her and I said, "Well, here we go." I mean, none of us really escapes things that happen to us, right? And I just thought, well, this is for me probably going to be my why. It's probably going to be a fight that I think I had prepared for health wise and that sort of thing, even though I never really thought it would be me. And kind of a funny side story, and yeah, I do use funny again, but when I was in ICU, before they came and talked to me, they have a thing called My Chart at UTSW. I know a lot
Right.
of patients are familiar with that.
Right.
They hadn't come and talked to me yet, but they had posted it on My Chart, and I had been on there
Oh,
waiting to see
wow.
results. Yeah,
Wow.
waiting to see results of certain tests. So here's what I read. I read found metastatic lesions riddled throughout my body, numerous lesions. So that was what the verbiage was. Now, that's not a medical term. That is a subjective term that the researcher puts in there. He could have said anything or she could have said anything. So when I first read that, the word riddled throughout my body made me think I had months to live. I didn't know anything about myeloma. I just knew I've got a cancer and I've got a bone marrow cancer. So my wife and I, we had our kids there. She came out of the room. We talked about it away from the kids, just how we were going to deal with it. And I said, man, I don't know what this means. I don't know if I have 3 months, 6 months. I didn't know anything about this certain cancer. But we did find out later on that evening when they finally came and saw us what the story was. And when I found out it was myeloma, they put that in My Chart. Of course, like most of us, I started researching right away and found the more positive side that a lot of people survive anywhere from 2 to 5 years. So I thought, okay, I'm going to do 5. I'd already made that decision. And then I read more and more. And as I researched more and more, I found, okay, some people live 10, live 15. And I said, well, I'm going to fight for 15. I'm going to fight for 20. I have young kids. I don't leave anybody behind. That's kind of my thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's how I approach this. And that was my mentality. So I had my 15 minutes of devastation, so to speak. And then I was like, well, I don't have time really to do that. I need to be there for those that are here and make the best of what I've got. And obviously where I'm at now, I have a better understanding of I don't have months to live. I actually, depending on the decisions I make, I could be here for quite a long time. And I've met other
Right.
people who have the same story. So
No, that's great. I mean, you really sort of took the bull by the horns, dealt with it head on and had such a positive sort of mindset and a can-do attitude. I think I want to, stress that for the people going through this and hearing this diagnosis and maybe watching this video story, that it's not a death sentence. It's not like, months to live. And you're very young, and when people research multiple myeloma, they think it's sort of an older disease, something you get later in life, but it's happening earlier and earlier, but it's more beatable as well, and you can bring it down to a manageable level and carry on for many decades, hopefully. So Um, so any comment on that, sort of other people who are, hearing about it?
Yeah, I really like, I'm part of the Multiple Myeloma Warrior group on Facebook. And I see so many different stories, but one thing I really try to stress is that, hey, um, I've had my bad days like anybody else. I think that's more the treatment than the disease itself. I really do think it's just a mindset of whether or not you're going to. I mean, I said from day one I was going to beat it back to the center of the earth where it came from, and if I if
Excellent.
I lose that battle, then it wasn't without a fight. And I really try to encourage people. And I understand some people have it way worse than I do. They've been through way worse than I've been through. We both know Alan. He's got just a amazing story, and I'm just like, how are you here, man? Like,
Right.
you really did it, But I don't know how to find the right words to encourage people enough just to, like I say every morning, and it comes from a lot of my fitness and my own tactical training. Like you put 2 feet on the floor and you say, "This day is mine, and I'm going to own it to the best I can." And but I try to say that with compassion too, because I realize I don't have fractured vertebrae.
Right.
There's things that people. So I try to say those words carefully, and with just a lot of compassion behind it.
100%.
Just with
100%.
yeah.
But
So
mindset, is so important no matter what state of the progression you're in. And, you can do a lot with the right mindset and attitude. So,
agreed.
uh, let's talk a little bit about the support and the resources you connected with. I know you got to UTSM pretty quickly. Maybe talk about that institution and what they've done for you, what it means, and what your medication list is that they put you on.
Sure. Man, I'll say it was an absolute divine appointment that I ended up there. My team consists of Dr. Amaz Afro. She's been amazing, very attentive, very quick to answer questions, very quick to educate. I want to kind of shout out to Martina Zilic. She was a PA that's been really awesome just in talking to me about a little bit more of the natural side of just diet. And, because I got a lot of my blood work back in the normal ranges by changing my diet right away.
Mm,
Um, so that facility has been, there's so many people I could shout out to.
please do.
Dr. Kozak has been my radiologist, my oncology radiologist. She was really amazing in tackling this tumor and how to keep me at the least amount of radiation, but do the most damage to the tumor and get it out of here. And she had a lot of success doing that. So that was something I want to shout out to. And my first doctor, believe she was a resident, Dr. Sheffield. She was the first one that spoke to me, and she was just amazing. So there's been a lot of people in and out. I can't remember all their names, but UTSW is dedicated. There's a whole wing and a floor dedicated just to myeloma, and they've been pretty amazing. You asked about medication list. My initial thing that they did was dexamethasone. There was high doses of that to shrink the tumor. I think to start attacking the myeloma some. And then I have an endocrinologist who had nothing to do with the myeloma side. She was more the pituitary gland side because that was compromised at the time. So I had to go on some hydrocortisone to get my adrenals functioning. She had success in that. I'm off of that now. I only had to do that for a couple of months. And once they pulled the tumor back and got it off my pituitary gland, really kind of neat. She said, well, you may have 60%, you may have 100%. Let's just see what happens. By the end of May, I had 100% function back in my pit gland. So I was able to come off the hydrocortisone. The treatment I stayed on at that point going forward was my mainline infusion treatment, which was Dara, Velcade, and dexamethasone, and also a dose of Revlimid. And I haven't had any issues with that other than with the Revlimid. That's kind of been a back and forth thing. They've tried to find the right dose, but now I'm pretty much off of it until I start this next line of maintenance treatment coming up in October to finally stave off what's left over.
Right, right. And stem cell, you considered it, but you're not going there yet.
Yeah, not right now. I'm not going to go to stem cell. And the reason I decided that, I went ahead and did the collection. I got that done last week. I was really thankful for that. I only had to do one day. They were able to get almost 10 million stem cells. They only wanted 6. So I was really thankful for that. Had a great team doing the blood work behind that. But I decided I had talked to a few other people and started doing my own research. I do that a lot anyway, just to kind of get educated and not just depend on my medical team. And quick side note, I would encourage most people to do that because your medical team is so busy with so many patients. A lot of times they may not line out all the side effects for you or may not line out exactly what happens. So I had a really neat lady named Kathy who I messaged with on Facebook a couple of times. And my wife and I both spoke with her quite a bit, and she gave me some of her story. She's been dealing with this for 18 years,
Wow.
and she never got stem cell. And I want to be really careful and say I don't discourage it at all. This was a very personal decision for me. The reason I did collect is so I could do it in the future if I needed to, but my bone involvement was so little because they did catch it early. And even though I was at 94% at the beginning, I was able to get down so quick that
Right.
I decided to just wait because the stem cell treatment is really hard on the body.
Right.
And I decided to keep an eye on my numbers. They've got my stem cells if I change my mind, or if I get to a point where there's no choice, I have to do it. But we're going to kind of see how remission goes without it.
Got it. And this is great because you're close to remission. I know your M proteins are 0.22 and you need to be at 0.05 to be considered in remission. So you're right there, right?
Right
Uh,
there, yeah. So I'm kind of hoping, and those numbers came down 3 weeks ago. They were at 0.45 and 0.62, I think.
yep.
So that's already come down quite a bit. So I'm hoping within the next couple of months we'll hear that beautiful word and we'll go forward from
Excellent.
there.
Excellent. You got to update us on that. And on the story of talking to the person who had done stem cell, we have Patient Connect, right? If you go to the Patient Connect app, the link is above here. We're trying to facilitate these discussions and routing people to the specialists that are best suited to them. And so this story that you just heard from Byron, talking to another patient who had gone through this procedure before, where they went through it, UTSM, anybody who is considering UTSM, please find Byron. Byron, what's the town that you're in so they can find you on the map?
I'm actually in Burleson, a little bit south of Fort Worth, and UTSW is in Dallas.
There you go. So find Byron on the map, reach out to him about his care at UTSM and the meds and the physicians that he's been under. And, patients can share their stories at scale now, right? We can find people that are considering different options. And we know that in multiple myeloma, there's no single standard of care. Every facility runs things a particular way. And so if you're considering a specific facility for some reasoning, find other patients that are already connected and have done care there and ask them how they've done and get some more information, as Byron did in his case. Byron, any point about, talking to patients and, seeing other patients that have gone to facilities before you consider those facilities?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really the one thing I really wanted to say about talking about that is just get in a group, be really honest about how you're feeling about stuff. There's no reason to hide that. Like ask the hard questions.
Right.
I'm glad to talk about my experience at my facility. I think it's one of the top ones. I know UAMS, where Alan has gone. A few other patients have gone. I just mentioned him. He's the first one that comes to mind.
Yep.
It sounds very similar in standard of care, high caliber. Very, very much do care about their patients and how they're treated and that sort of thing. But yeah, it's the patient connect thing. I think hopefully answered your question, but I think that's real important to discuss because I read plenty of stories where people don't know where to go and they just go to their oncologist, and it's nothing against that oncologist. It's just they don't have the ins and outs of a particular, especially myeloma. It's fairly new. I think the first thing they said to me when I was in ICU is I've got like the rarest of rare blood cancers, and I go, well, that's how I would do that, right? I wouldn't choose something real common. So but yeah, I think that's what's real important, just to get that education so kind of the decisions you're making.
Excellent. Yes. And we always say, the finding a multiple myeloma specialist and a center of excellence, you can have them as the quarterback and make sure that they're running, the best plan for you as possible.
Yeah.
And Patient Connect can help route you to the best places for you and the best people for you.
Yeah.
So, as we sort of wrap here, I just, what are some role, the role of support that your family and friends and team have played with you in navigating this journey, maybe even colleagues? How do you stay hopeful and motivated even on the tougher days?
I think the biggest support I've had is my wife. I can't go into that too much because I get pretty emotional about her.
Fair, fair, fair.
Um, she has been, I can't, it's just a pillar of strength. And even as much as I tell her, hey, take care of yourself through this too, she just has been everything. And it's the days that I have a hard day, she's like, hey man, you need to rest. I mean, she's always reminding me to slow down, to rest, to breathe deep. So she's been probably 95% of this. The other part I would say, obviously, is I've met some fantastic people in the couple of Facebook groups I belong to, and hearing their stories, what they've gone through, having them be willing to give their input to me. I mean, like with Kathy, I just highly value that she shared her personal story with me of what she's been through. I didn't ask for that. I just asked her a couple of questions. She's like, "Yeah, let me tell you." So it's one of those things where support comes by coming alongside people, right? It's
Right.
like, hey, we're not the same. We probably don't have all the same story, but here's my experience, and you get that information, and you just get that I'm not doing this by myself. I'm not doing this alone. There's
Right.
plenty of people who get up every day and they're doing this with me. And I think it's real important just to make sure. That's why I said just be honest, be open, be willing to talk about your struggles and your triumphs. You know what you're going through, because sharing the triumphs encourages others. It also reminds you, hey, I can beat this. And then sharing the struggles reminds you, hey, I'm not alone. There's people struggling with me. It's normal to be a little bit fearful, don't know what all these meds do to my body. I don't know what the course of this disease runs, that sort of thing. So that's how it's played a role for me.
Excellent, excellent. All very helpful and important. And having, a spouse or, your significant other and family, there to support you is essential. Um,
Yeah.
and just sort of like if there's one thing, if people want to take away just one thing that could impact them the most from your story, what is the thing that you would say, here's the main point that you want to get across to the community?
Well, it's hard to put it into one point. I would say probably the biggest thing for me was said to me in the beginning by my creator, and it was just like, hey, um, we got this. You just got to lean into me. And the other thing I would say to you is just being a warrior with this is not a lot of people think a warrior is this sword wielding, screaming, banshee, and it's not. A lot of times being a warrior is just being a quiet warrior.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
Understanding that it's a battle, you know, and it's a battle that can be won. And that's what being a warrior is. It's being mindful in the battle that you are fighting, and the steps you're taking to fight that. So I'm not sure how to put that
No,
into
those are
one piece.
beautiful. Those are
Yeah.
those are very wise and beautiful words. And you're going to help a lot of people with your story. And it's just such an impactful story that you have. And people should be reaching out to Byron on the Patient Connect app on Facebook. Um, I'm sure he'll be happy to share his story even in further detail for anybody reaching out. So we want to thank you,
Absolutely.
Byron, for your time, and thank you and your family for the support that they're giving you and you sharing your story with everyone.
You got it, man. Glad to do it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Take care.